My wife accused me of cheating because of her best friend, but when her postpartum depression almost killed her, that manipulator filed a false restraining order against me, and the judge destroyed her in court. I'm 32 years old. I work in construction, and 6 months ago my marriage fell apart in a way that I still can't fully process. My daughter Olivia is 8 months old now, and she's with me and my parents while her mother, Jennifer, tries to recover from something that basically destroyed all of us. The thing is, none of this had to happen. I mean, if only we had handled things differently, if Jennifer had accepted help earlier, if that damn Stephanie hadn't stuck her nose where it didn't belong. But anyway, I guess I should start from the beginning, when everything seemed normal, when we thought we were going to be a happy family. Jennifer and I got married 3 years ago. We met in college. She was studying nursing and I was doing civil engineering. And honestly, it was one of those relationships that just flowed, you know? There was no drama, no big fights, just two people who got along well and decided to build something together. We moved into a small house in the suburbs. I got a decent job at a construction company. She worked at a local hospital, and everything was good. We planned the pregnancy. We wanted a baby. We were excited. Jennifer read all those books about motherhood. I assembled the crib like 3 times because the first time I did it wrong. And we bought like 1,000 things we probably didn't even need, but that made us feel prepared. We felt ready, basically. The birth was in December, and that's where everything started to go sideways, although we didn't know it at the time. Olivia was born after like 18 hours of labor. It was traumatic for Jennifer. There were complications. They had to use forceps. She lost a lot of blood. And when the baby was finally born, we were all exhausted but relieved. I thought the worst was over, that now there was just the nice part of being parents. But Jennifer changed after the birth. At first, I thought it was normal. The exhaustion, the hormones, all that stuff they tell you happens after having a baby. She cried a lot, didn't sleep even when Olivia slept, and there were days when she could barely get out of bed. I tried to help as much as I could. I'd get up at night, change diapers, tell her to rest, but nothing seemed like enough. Jennifer insisted she was fine, that she just needed time, and I believed her because I wanted to believe her. About 6 weeks after the birth, my boss offered me a big project that required extra time, a lot of overtime hours, but also meant an important bonus that we needed. Jennifer had just gone back to work part-time. Her parents were helping us with Olivia some days, and I thought we could handle it. I accepted the project. I started working like 12, 13 hours a day, leaving at 6 in the morning and getting back at 8 or 9 at night, completely destroyed. And this is where Stephanie comes in, Jennifer's best friend since high school, who coincidentally at that time was between jobs and offered to help with the baby. At the time, it seemed great to me, honestly, because Jennifer needed support and Stephanie had always been close to her. What I didn't know, what nobody really knew, was that Stephanie had her own problems. Turns out she was jealous of Jennifer, of her life, of her having a husband and a house and a baby, because Stephanie had just ended a horrible relationship and was bitter about everyone. But I found this out later, much later, when everything was already destroyed. At that moment, I just saw that someone was helping my wife, and that gave me peace of mind to be able to work those crazy hours. Stephanie spent almost every day at our house, helped with Olivia, cooked, cleaned, and Jennifer seemed to depend on her more and more. I'd arrive late, exhausted, barely had energy to eat dinner and collapse in bed, and the next day it would all start again. One day I got home. It was like 9 at night, and Jennifer was waiting for me with a face I'd never seen on her. She was sitting on the couch with her arms crossed, and Stephanie was there too, which seemed weird to me because usually she'd already left by that time. Jennifer said to me, "We need to talk," and I thought maybe it was about the time I was spending working, that maybe she wanted me to turn down the project or something. But no. What came out of her mouth was, "Stephanie told me, you're probably cheating on me." Just like that. Direct, no preamble. I stood there with my backpack still on my shoulder, trying to process what I'd just heard, and all I could say was, "What?" Jennifer started listing the reasons, the same ones that obviously Stephanie had put in her head, that I worked a lot of hours, that I came home late, that I was always tired, that I didn't spend time with her anymore, that there was probably someone else. I looked at Stephanie and she just shrugged, like saying, "I'm just saying what I see." I tried to explain to Jennifer that I was working, that it was all for the project, that I could show her my time in and time out records, that I could call my boss if she wanted, but she was like gone, like she couldn't process logical information. She told me she wanted to check my phone. I gave her my phone. Obviously, I had nothing to hide. And she spent like an hour checking every message, every photo, every app. She didn't find anything because there was nothing to find. But instead of apologizing or feeling relieved, Jennifer just said, "Maybe you're very careful deleting the evidence." That's when I realized something was very wrong. That this wasn't just about Stephanie planting doubts, but that Jennifer was in a mental place where reason didn't matter. That night I slept on the couch because Jennifer didn't want me in the bedroom with her. The following weeks were a nightmare. Jennifer interrogated me constantly, checked my clothes looking for perfume or hair, called my work verifying that I was really there, and Stephanie was still there all the time, feeding the fire, telling her things like, "All men lie. I have to protect yourself. Don't let him make you a fool." I tried to be patient, tried to remember that Jennifer had just had a baby and that hormones did crazy things, but I was reaching my limit. The project finally ended. I went back to my normal schedule. I thought things would get better if I spent more time at home, but it didn't get better. Jennifer became more erratic, more paranoid, and there were days when I barely recognized the woman I'd married. One Friday, I got home from work. It was like 5:30, my normal time, and the house was destroyed. And when I say destroyed, I mean it looked like a tornado had gone through. The drawers were all open. There were clothes thrown everywhere. The couch cushions were on the floor. Even the plants were knocked over. I panicked, thinking we'd been robbed, but then I heard Olivia crying in her room, a desperate cry that told me she'd been alone there for a while. I ran to her room and found her in her crib, red from crying so much, with a dirty diaper, clearly hungry. I picked her up, calmed her down, changed her diaper, made her a bottle, and the whole time my mind was trying to understand what the hell had happened. I found Jennifer in our room, sitting on the floor surrounded by more clothes and papers, crying. I asked her what had happened, and she told me she'd been looking for proof, that there had to be something, that it wasn't possible for me to be so perfect if I wasn't hiding something. I asked her how long she'd left Olivia alone, and she couldn't even answer me. She just kept crying and saying she had to find the truth. That night I called Jennifer's parents. I explained to them what was happening, that I believed Jennifer needed professional help, that this went beyond normal jealousy or postpartum insecurity. Her mom came the next day, talked to Jennifer, and Jennifer swore to her that she was fine, that I was exaggerating, that she'd just had a bad day. Stephanie was there too, backing up. Jennifer, saying that I was the problem, that I was an absent and controlling husband. Jennifer's parents didn't know who to believe, and they finally left telling me to call them if things got worse, but that maybe Jennifer just needed more support. I felt completely alone in this, like nobody saw what I was seeing. The last straw was like 2 weeks later. It was a Sunday morning. I was in the kitchen making breakfast for Jennifer and me. Olivia was sleeping in her room, and suddenly Jennifer came in furious, screaming that she'd found a suspicious message on my phone. The message was from a coworker, a woman like 50 years old married with 3 kids, who had sent me a message about a report she needed for Monday. Literally, the message said something like, "Hey Robert, can you send me the report from the construction site on 5th Street when you can? Thanks." Nothing. Absolutely nothing suspicious. But Jennifer was convinced it was code, that it was my lover, that she'd finally found the proof she needed. I tried to reason with her, showed her other messages from the same coworker, all equally professional and boring. Tried to explain who this person was, but she wasn't listening. She started screaming at me, horrible things, telling me I was a liar, a cheater, that I ruined her life, that she wished we'd never gotten married. And then she hit me. She punched me in the face, right in the cheekbone. With all her strength, I was in shock. Never in my life had Jennifer been violent. We'd never even had a push in our fights. I touched my face and felt it bleeding a little, and all I could think was, this isn't safe anymore. I have to get my daughter out of here. Jennifer stood there looking at me, and for a second she seemed to come back to reality, seemed to realize what she'd done. But then Stephanie, who of course was there again, told her something like, "You had the right to defend yourself. He's doing this to you." In that moment, I made the decision. I went upstairs, packed some things for Olivia and me, picked her up along with her diaper bag, and left the house. Jennifer tried to stop me, blocked the door, but I just went around her and left. I drove straight to my parents' house. My parents live like 40 minutes from our house, in a smaller town. When I arrived with Olivia and explained to them what had happened, my mom started crying and my dad wanted to go immediately to talk to Jennifer. But I told him no, that I needed time to think, to decide what to do. I stayed with them that night. Olivia slept in an old crib that my parents still had from the last grandchild, and I basically didn't sleep at all thinking about how I'd gotten to this point. The next day was Monday. I called work and asked for a few emergency days, and then I called a lawyer. The lawyer recommended I document everything, take photos of the bruise on my face that was already purple, write a timeline of everything that had happened, and consider asking for a restraining order if Jennifer tried to contact me in a threatening way. Jennifer called me like 50 times that day. At first I didn't answer, but finally I answered one call because I needed to talk about Olivia, about her needs, about temporary custody. The conversation was horrible. Jennifer was hysterical, screaming that I had no right to take her daughter, that she hadn't done anything wrong, that I was the one who had destroyed everything with my imaginary infidelity. I told her we could talk when she was calm, when she could have a rational conversation, and I hung up. That night, like at midnight, Jennifer and Stephanie showed up at my parents' house. They knocked on the door, yelled, demanded that I hand over Olivia. My parents called the police. When the patrol arrived, Jennifer was sitting on the porch crying, saying that her husband had stolen her baby, that she was the mother and had the right to have her daughter. The officers asked me to explain my version. I showed them photos of my bruised face, explained about Jennifer's erratic behavior, and they finally convinced Jennifer to go home, that this had to be resolved legally, not like this. The following days were administrative chaos. I officially hired the lawyer, started the process for a temporary restraining order, documented every interaction with Jennifer. Stephanie, incredibly, started posting on social media about how I was a horrible father who had abandoned his best friend in her most vulnerable moment. Some mutual friends started taking sides, most without really knowing what had happened. I didn't want to air our dirty laundry in public, so I didn't respond to any of that, just focused on taking care of Olivia and making sure she was safe. Olivia, poor thing, was too young to understand what was happening, but I knew she needed stability, needed routine, needed to know that someone was there for her consistently. Jennifer started to deteriorate more. Her parents called me, worried, saying that Jennifer barely ate, that she spent entire days in pajamas, that she refused any help they tried to give her. I suggested they take her to a psychiatrist, that she clearly needed medication and therapy for postpartum depression, but they were afraid of forcing her, of pushing her more to the edge. The situation remained in a tense limbo for like 3 weeks. Me taking care of Olivia with my parents' help, Jennifer sinking deeper into her depression, and Stephanie still there, supposedly supporting her but actually only making everything worse. Then Jennifer had a complete breakdown. Her parents found her in the bathroom. She'd taken a whole bottle of sleeping pills. Not enough to kill her, but enough that they had to take her to the hospital and pump her stomach. They called me from the hospital. I went immediately. I left Olivia with my parents. And when I arrived, Jennifer was sedated, connected to machines. She looked so small and fragile in that hospital bed. Her parents were devastated. They told me the doctors wanted to keep her under psychiatric observation, that they were finally going to give her the treatment she'd needed for months. I sat with them in the waiting room and we all cried together, I think, for the first time admitting how serious the situation really was. While Jennifer was in the hospital, Stephanie did something incredibly low. She went to court and requested a restraining order against me on Jennifer's behalf, alleging that I was emotionally abusive, that I'd abandoned my wife in her most vulnerable moment, that I was using the baby as a weapon. She presented as evidence the posts she herself had written on social media, plus statements from Jennifer that she supposedly had recorded, although she never produced actual recording, and basically a bunch of lies. I found out when I received the hearing notification. My lawyer almost couldn't believe it, told me this was a classic manipulative tactic, that Stephanie probably thought that if she kept me away, Jennifer would depend on her more. The hearing was like 2 weeks later. In those 2 weeks, Jennifer got out of the hospital with an official diagnosis of severe postpartum depression, with psychotic features, a new medication regimen, and a treatment plan that included weekly therapy. Her parents finally realized how toxic Stephanie was and confronted her, told her to stop interfering, to stay away from their daughter. Stephanie, of course, played the victim, said she'd only been trying to protect her best friend, but eventually she left and stopped showing up so much. Jennifer, with the medication starting to take effect, began to see things more clearly. She called me, crying, apologizing, saying she didn't know what had happened to her, that it felt like she'd been living in a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. I didn't know what to feel, honestly. Part of me wanted to forgive her. I understood she'd been sick, but another part of me was furious about everything we'd lost, about the damage that had been done. The hearing for the restraining order arrived. Jennifer showed up with her parents, and to my surprise, her lawyer filed a motion to dismiss the order that Stephanie had requested, explaining that Jennifer had never authorized that request, that Stephanie had acted without her consent, and that in fact Jennifer wanted everything withdrawn. The judge wasn't happy, basically scolded Stephanie for abusing the legal system, and dismissed the order immediately. Stephanie tried to argue, said that Jennifer was being manipulated by me and by her parents, but the judge didn't want to hear any more. It was the first time in months that I felt something was going in the right direction, that someone with authority could see through the lies. After the hearing, Jennifer and I sat down to talk, just the two of us, in the courthouse lobby. Jennifer told me she couldn't be a mother right now, that although she loved Olivia, she knew she wasn't in a condition to take care of her, that she needed to focus on her recovery. She told me she wanted to give me full custody, at least temporarily, that she wanted supervised visits once her doctors said it was safe, but that she understood if I didn't trust her. I told her the truth, that I didn't trust her yet, that I would need to see consistency, see that she was really recovering, but that I didn't want to deprive her of her daughter forever. That I hope someday we could co-parent in a healthy way. Jennifer started coming to supervised visits every week, at first at her parents' house with them present, then in neutral places. The first visits were tense. Olivia didn't even recognize her after so long, cried when Jennifer tried to pick her up. That broke Jennifer's heart. I could see it on her face, but she persisted. Came every week, brought toys, read stories, tried to rebuild that bond that had been broken. It's been 6 months since everything exploded. Jennifer is still in therapy, still taking her medication, and little by little, she's improving. I don't know if our marriage can be saved. Honestly, I don't know. There's too much damage, too much distrust, too many things that were said and done that can't be erased. We've talked about divorce, about what that would be like, about how it would affect Olivia. Neither of us has taken the step of officially initiating it. I think we're both in limbo, waiting to see what happens, waiting to see if there's something to salvage or if it's best to let it go. Olivia is fine. That's the most important thing. She's 8 months old now. She's starting to crawl, says Dada, although I don't think she really knows what it means. Laughs when my mom makes funny faces at her. She's growing up surrounded by love, stability, people who care for her. She has no memories of those chaotic months, and for that I'm grateful. Jennifer sees her twice a week now. The visits aren't as strictly supervised anymore, and I can see they're starting to connect. Jennifer is more patient now, more present, more like the woman I met before everything fell apart. Stephanie, by the way, completely disappeared from our lives. Jennifer finally understood the damage Stephanie had caused, how she'd exploited her illness for her own twisted purposes and cut off all contact with her. The last time I knew anything about Stephanie was like 3 months ago. Jennifer told me she'd sent her a message asking for forgiveness, saying she'd been going through her own crisis, but Jennifer blocked her without responding. Some people are toxic, and that's it, and the best thing you can do is get them out of your life. I don't know what's going to happen with us, with Jennifer and me. There are days when I think that maybe, with time and therapy, we could try again. There are other days when I know the best. The thing is to move on separately. That although I love her and probably always will love her, the marriage is too broken. What I do know is that I'm going to do whatever's best for Olivia. That's my priority. And if that means being separated but functional parents, then that's how it'll be. Last week, Jennifer asked me if I could ever forgive her, if we could ever trust each other again. I told her I didn't know, that I was being honest in saying I didn't know, but that I was willing to see where time takes us. And that's all I can offer now, I guess. Time and patience, and the hope that somehow we all come out of this a little less broken than we are now.